Now, given that the entire film industry, as well as the Hollywood bubble, are in full-on panic mode right now, the biggest studio of all that is pushing their overall agenda and doubling down on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is indeed the Walt Disney Company. And their latest disaster, by the way, is Snow White 2025, featuring Rachel Zegler. Now, based on the recent inflammatory comments that Zegler spewed when it came to her political opinion, that really and truly backfired to the point where Disney had to come in, forced her to apologize in the worst way possible, and even after that, the backlash continued to grow. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So in the midst of all this drama between Rachel Zegler, the Disney studio executives, the general public pushing back against the Snow White film, and everything that Rachel Zegler said to the general public, this is really creating a large issue for not just Bob Iger, but also for the board of directors, the Disney executives, and even the creatives behind the Snow White films, such as director Mark Webb and writer Greta Gerwig. Yes, she is the one that wrote this movie. But focusing on Rachel Zegler in isolation, she's been going through a lot of issues as the Walt Disney Company has been making all of these different decisions at last minute, and a lot of this has to do with the cancellation situation for Rachel Zegler. Let's get into this, shall we? Now, one thing about all of this has a lot to do with the fact that the backlash is not watering down at all. In fact, the backlash is only getting worse week by week, and hiding the trailer by the Walt Disney Company is not helping, alright? So they are hiding this main trailer at all costs after showing it to a handful of attendees in an audience, but we'll get to that in just a second. However, with many studios within the film industry now beginning to struggle deeply due to public backlash, one monumental development going on now involves more to do with Rachel Zegler and what the Walt Disney Company recently did to her as a result of the intense Snow White backlash. Now, a swift move was recently placed by both Bob Iger and the Disney executives after not only hiding the main Snow White trailer for multiple days now, but they always, of course, canceled Rachel Zegler in a significant way when it involves her upcoming press tour for the upcoming film, which is an even bigger sign that the film is failing on a massive scale. It turns out that Zegler and her team are beginning to fight back against the Disney studio heads after they canceled nearly all performances of Rachel Zegler outright within the past 48 hours. The biggest one of all, get this, was that they canceled a full-on singing performance of Rachel Zegler where she was going to be dressed up as Snow White at the world premiere in March of 2025. Within the first 2 weeks at some point, both singing and playing guitar. This performance was, of course, now officially canceled by the Walt Disney Company in the midst of the intense backlash. To make matters worse for Zegler is that she was also going to serve as a performer at the 2025 Oscars. This performance was also going to serve as a part of the press tour for Snow White and crucial to the marketing campaign of the movie, and were both considered to be very crucial to the marketing of the film. Now, Zegler and her team are already blaming Disney for discrimination, and Zegler is the one pushing that overall message to those like Bob Iger, the CEO, and the many executives that are in panic right now over the 2025 film. Now, in addition to all of this, Disney is also canceling several interviews that were planned to be very significant, of course, for the marketing campaign, and significant interviews that were going to promote DEI and everything related to the Disney agenda upfront through Zegler's voice on video. All of those interviews have now been axed, except a small margin of interviews that are geared towards smaller scale conversations for the public. Now, Zegler's behavior behind the scenes was best described as unhinged and uncontrolled, and believes that Disney is breaking promises that were made in her contract, and is already in the process of taking action somehow, some way, at some point in the very near future. The cancellation of Zegler's press tour for Snow White 2025 also comes after the 7th test screening failure of the movie, and Disney is indeed hiding the latest trailer that was only shown to a number of attendees. Now, both executives and board members pressured Iger to delay the Snow White trailer by days days, if not weeks, for breathing room to figure out what the next step is for Zegler. Now guys, let me say one thing about this whole situation now. The fact that they are not only hiding the trailer, but they are also canceling Rachel Zegler's press tour on a massive scale, I think that's the biggest living example of proof that this movie is going down the tubes right now behind the scenes, both internally and, of course, to the public eye. Now, we already know that there have been 7 test screenings. The latest one of all, like I just said before, failed miserably. And we do know that they're going to be engaging in some last-minute reshoots next month. We'll talk more about that in a couple of days from now. Interestingly enough, Rachel Zegler is blaming discrimination based on their recent swift move to cancel all of these major performances, right? Her singing, playing guitar, or a combo of that at the Oscars, at the world premiere, and other examples like the cancellation of her performances at New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving Parade, and a Christmas special, all of which were going to be integral to promoting the overall Snow White 2025 film. Now, like I said before, several interviews have been axed, they have been slashed. They want nothing to do with Zegler engaging in the public eye, at least on, a massive scale. They wanted to significantly water it down to a point where they could use her as little as possible, is what it boils down to. They don't want to use her as much as possible. They want to actually phase her out and save their image, or whatever's left of their image at this point when it comes to remaking Disney animated classics into live-action form, right? So moving on from that, Zegler is also blame-gaming Disney for falling victim to bigotry on social media, and that this is, of course, part of her argument that social media is why her career is floundering right now. Disney executives, however, made their case that it all had to do with her posts on social media that led to her recent press tour cancellation. Now guys, this all also comes well after she got booted from Blumhouse Productions. She was supposed to actually become a part of a horror trilogy, a horror movie trilogy that was supposed to compete against the Scream franchise. She was also fired from that, and that really is not a big shocker at all. A lot of studios are beginning to wake up to the Zegler effect. You don't hire somebody like Zegler that is so inflammatory, that is so toxic, where she becomes uncontrolled and says the most insane things, not just on social media, but also in interviews. So again, like I've said before in the past, not only is this movie, shifting away from source material, Snow White is called Snow White because she survived a snowstorm of all things. How ridiculous is that? It is ridiculous. Now, look, Zegler at the same exact time, she also created a lot of issues with actress Gal Gadot behind the scenes on a personal level based on their beliefs with real-world issues. And that also was a big stir and a big snag for the production of this film in the midst of engaging in reshoots. So again, like I've said before in the past, I think that Rachel Zegler with the Y2K and Snow White set to be failures on a box office level, and how it's going to be received to the public, I think is going to be a very big deal breaker for her career. But I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.